Good evening and welcome to Soulful Scrutiny. My name is Trish, and with me in the studio today is Mr. Brian Charles, an attorney here in the New York area, and Mr. Benny Charles. Normally, a Soulful Scrutiny program is usually a one-on-one discussion. We decided to deviate from that a bit today and have sort of like a round table, or should I say a square table discussion with myself and these two gentlemen. There's another gentleman, Mr. Eric Charles, who will be joining us via Skype later. It is really just coincidental that we all have the same last name. I know people are probably wondering, are they brothers and sisters? Mr. Charles here, Brian, is my younger brother, but the other gentleman, I'm actually just meeting Benny today for the first time, and Eric, I still have not met him. But I know we share a passion for this topic that we're going to be discussing today. The reason that we're meeting today is that we're all from a small country in the Eastern Caribbean called St Vincent and the Grenadines. St Vincent and the Grenadines is in that chain of islands called the Windward Islands. It is next to Grenada, and most people know Grenada because of what happened there years ago. There's some recent things that are happening in St Vincent and the Grenadines, and we are much troubled by what is happening. And so we've decided to put together this special edition of Soulful Scrutiny so that we can discuss these topics. I'm going to turn to these two gentlemen. In December 2015, December 9th to be specific, there was a general election in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And there was cries by the opposition. There were cries about foul play in the general election. The opposition claimed that there were a lot of irregularities and the election was effectively, it was stolen. And there have been demonstrations. There have been court hearings that I don't believe they were successful. We could talk about that a little bit later on. But from there, things just seem to have gotten a bit downhill in this country. And we're concerned as Vincentians because this is where we originated from. Most of us, we live here in the New York area. We may never go back to St. Vincent to live, but we still have that concern. Now, after the general elections and the cries about irregularities and the election being stolen, there were arrests of peaceful protesters, and that was something that I think a lot of people found a bit troubling because the current government in St. Vincent and the Grenadines went into office, and prior to going into office, they had many demonstrations and no one arrested anyone. And they are now switching the tables on people and saying, listen, even if you want to protest, peacefully, we're going to arrest you. And many are seeing this as intimidation. So we go from that to some current events that are happening. And I'm going to touch now on one of the first things on my list of things to discuss is the Cybercrime Bill. That country is currently, they've currently presented a bill in front of Parliament. And for those of you who do not know, we don't have the same structure as the United States, but the Parliament would be similar to the Senate. And so this Cybercrime Bill was put before the Parliament, and essentially people were told that this is something to be worried about, because if this bill passes, there could be some real problems here. So I want to go first to Brian, and I want to have you lead us a little bit in this bill. What do you understand this bill to be, this Cybercrime Bill that has been presented in the Parliament in St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
Well, my understanding, or at least they claiming that the bill is supposed to address issues that have to do with child pornography, legitimate stuff. But in that same bill, there are provisions for cyberbullying and basically the bottom line is, if you're even embarrassed by a posting that someone has, you could be found guilty, not liable, guilty. Seems to me that he's criminalizing speech.
So freedom of speech is under attack.
Yes, that is definitely under attack. So
and stiff fines, from what I understand.
yes, stiff fines. I believe it's 200,000 for something. I mean, there are legitimate reasons for having aspects of the bill. Those having to do with child pornography, as I say, and other things. But such subjective stuff should be vague, constitutionally void for vagueness. It means if I offend you, if I embarrass you in some way, I could be found guilty, not liable. Guilty meaning it's a criminal conviction. And so I believe that this bill, in my opinion, is a pretext. It's meant to silence people, critics, and understand that the Prime Minister was one of the most vocal opponents of the then government policy when he was in opposition, as he should have been. And now he's trying to criminalize
free speech.
Free speech, criminalize people for doing things which he himself had done. In my opinion, if he didn't make any kind of jail in opposition, no one else should make jail, because he spoke out on issues that deserve to be spoken out about. So I think, in my opinion, it's a pretext for silencing critics. That's honestly my opinion.
Well, Benny, we know that there are many political groups in social media that criticizes the Prime Minister, and there's some who have gone as much as to put embarrassing things on the internet about him. So, in your opinion, do you think that this cybercrime bill is more about silencing those people, like Brian was saying, than it is really about protecting children? Because while he does make a good point in that there have been some issues with victimization of children, and it would be very good to have some measure of that bill in effect. But when you have it as vague as he's describing, then it does seem a little troubling.
Well,
do you agree?
I personally think that if we look at crime in St. Vincent as it is right now, there's a lot of child pornography going around the internet, child abuse, rape, all these things have been happening. When was the last time somebody actually got arrested for any of these stuff?
Right.
I mean, we have a government that is not for the people, because everything that they have done within the last 15 years has been somewhat ending up damaging the country in some way. With the main focus since being in office is to divide the country. No time in the history of St. Vincent has we ever been this divided as a people. We were the envy of the Caribbean at one point. People love Vincentian. Every Caribbean.
We're known as a peaceful people.
Of course.
Vincy's peaceful.
Peaceful.
The woman will be told you're good white material.
That was then.
That was then, back then,
But,
yes.
I mean, today we don't have a lot to be proud of. I mean, for instance, up to the other night I watched the Olympics and I stayed up late. I'm like waiting to see my Vincy people. Mm-hmm. And you know, when all the countries came on, you hear they talk something about the country, and then all I heard was St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Nothing. No information was given to them too.
And what was funny about this, the country that came before St. Vincent and the Grenadines was announced as the smallest country entering the Olympics with almost 200,000 people.
Yeah.
But then St. Vincent comes on, and you can see they said population 110, but nobody even said it.
Nothing.
It's like there isn't the outside media do not know anything about St. Vincent. Mm-hmm. Even the IMF, they put out information, and it's hard to think, where do they get the information?
Is it fed to them by the government?
That's what we worry about, because I mean, nothing seemed to be as it is said.
Right.
You know, so there's a lot of bias. I think this bill main focus is to protect the government. It is not to defend children's right or women's right or abuse.
You're saying
no.
that they're disguising this.
It is. That's all it is.
It's a
about.
disguise. Okay.
That's all it is.
Now, let's take things a little bit further and try to give probably the audience a better idea of why this is so troubling. Recently, a gentleman by the name of Paul Scruggs was visiting the island of St Vincent, and he spent, I understand, about 5 weeks on the island. Went about freely. Nobody stopped him coming in. Nobody questioned him while he was there. And as he was getting ready to get on a plane to come back to the United States, he was pulled off, arrested, put in jail for the weekend. They took his travel documents, went to court that Monday, and was told that your hearing is postponed for 3 months. Now, this man is a man with family and a job to come back to, so you could imagine he's in jeopardy of losing his job. His son is not going to have the father there with him for something that, in my opinion, and I think for most reasonable people, my understanding is that he was charged with, or he was accused of you got gentlemen, you're an attorney, probably could explain.
Sedition or something like that. Sedition and making threats.
Making threats. So if you're making a threat and you're allowed to stay on this island and go around freely for 5 weeks, why you're arrested as you're leaving? And I made the analogy of, let's say a burglar comes into my house, and at some point that burglar has a change of mind, and he decided to flee. He decided to flee out of my house. I think when I should be doing something to him is when he's trying to enter my house or while he's in there. But if he's running away from me, so even if you were to take it as far as to say, okay, maybe he did make a threat, I don't know. Why would you let him walk around that island freely for 5 weeks and then arrest him as he's leaving? And now you want 3 months rather, to put a case together. Shouldn't you know what you're talking about and what you're charging him with and have some case ready to roll to the courts? So, you know, that has been something that's been very troubling. Something that's been very troubling. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about this issue regarding the arrest of Paul Scruggs. We're going to be talking about another person who was arrested, Josie Biddy, who was arrested in St. Vincent and the Grenadines regarding things along this very line. And we're going to be joined by Eric Charles when we come back, who's going to be talking to us from Rhode Island. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in a little bit. Welcome back to Soulful Scrutiny. I'm here in the studio with Brian Charles, attorney, and Benny Charles, and on Skype with us today is Eric Charles, who recently traveled to St. Vincent and the Grenadines to visit relatives and friends. And Eric, we were talking earlier about the fact that in this country, they have this Cybercrime Bill in front of Parliament, which is really troubling to many people. And a lot of people, majority of people, believe that this bill is basically aimed at silencing critics and thereby interfering with freedom of speech. There was a gentleman who we all know, Paul Scruggs, who was arrested after spending 5 weeks on the island. No one arrested him or said anything to him, and as he was leaving, he was pulled off of a plane, and he was arrested, put in jail, went to court on a Monday. His documents, from what I understand, was seized, his travel documents, and he was told that his case would be in 3 months, and of course he's stuck, and he's basically being held there because he can't travel. So what is your take on this issue? Because before the Paul Scruggs incident, there was a teacher, Josette Biddy, who was arrested for allegedly insinuating a curse word on the internet. And she was pulled out of the classroom in front of students and arrested, and later on charged with nothing. And I recently understand that she was trying to leave St. Vincent and the Grenadines on sometime last week. And at the airport, they attempted to stop her until she spoke up, because she had never been issued a stop for traveling. Her documents were never seized, and she spoke up, and eventually they let her go. But what is your take on what's going on in St. Vincent?
Well, let me thank you for allowing me to be on your program. Regarding the cyber bill, what I am observing from a layman's standpoint, the other technical aspect I'll allow to the Lord Mayor, Mr. Brian Charles, so I can only speak from a layman's standpoint. That is, like you alluded to, is designed to stifle critics or to scaremongering. The Postcard issue is just ludicrous because I have had a police training. I was a police once, and from what I'm seeing there is that if a man is so dangerous, you would keep him away from this man, he wants to kill him and his family, or where he's staying, you would have police always watching him. Why are you keeping him there and he's free? It just shows that you're doing it to make it hard for the man. That's my point. And these guys, they are so, they don't care about who they affect or what they affect. They will do anything to hurt you if you disregard whatever they put out. That the cyber bill, for me, is just protecting a family who conceive. They conceive it in their head that they are the royal family, in my opinion, and they're going to do whatever it takes to protect them. You know, it's not even a perception; it's a conception. In their head, we own this place, and we're going to do whatever it takes to protect ourselves from the simpler people. You know, they think they're superior to everybody else. That's what I think.
Now, Eric, let me just, for the audience, Prime Minister Gunsab is a white man of Portuguese descent. He is ruling over a country of predominantly African people. We have some indigenous population, some East Indians, and some white Vincentians. But it is predominantly a country of African, a country of people who are of African descent. Now, do you feel, because I've heard others say, and I'm going to try to get your take on it, do you feel that the way in which he runs this country have anything to do with the fact that majority of these people on this island are black, and he feels that as someone of European descent, he have some sort of power over them, or is this just an individual that, in your opinion, has issues? Because we were never a racial country. We have classism, but we were never a racial country. But more and more you're hearing people saying it is starting to smell of racism. So what is your take on that?
Are you the question
To
pointed to me?
you, yes.
Oh, well, yes, of course, because there's a big racist problem in St. Vincent. I grew up in St. Vincent 50 years now, never came across that. But when somebody alludes to the fact that St. Vincent belongs to them and only they can spend money and all that, then you have to say, well, this is racism, plain and simple. And that you have to say for what it is. Yes, St. Vincent has been polarized. I've never seen, elections times people have their rigorous argument, and after it goes back to love and respect. But St. Vincent, it has become so polarized that if you're not healthy or wearing a red satin, that you should suffer and die. As his son said, people must suffer and die who don't support them politically, which is, I think, was just put in there to make it look a little easier. But the average person would want to believe that he meant what he said. You understand? Regarding my visit home, I was stopped as well, and by a policeman. Some people say he's NDP, but I'm a policeman. A policeman is trained to accept or instructions. It doesn't matter who, degree, whatever. I came off the plane and this man made me feel very uncomfortable. Enough that I don't feel like going back there again right now. Made me empty
Now,
my
when you say, are you talking at the immigration station, at customs? Where did he make you feel uncomfortable?
After clearing all these places, the people told me to go buy my business and go enjoy my stay. He showed me some piece of paper, which I know as a ex-policeman, it's an ID card, so I didn't make an issue. Had it been like in New York, it would have been a different story, but I know that's what they gave them. But he made me empty my pocket, my bag, and asked me how much money, how long I'm staying, all kind of stories.
Wow.
And that I felt very uncomfortable. So in the end, I said to him, do you know that I'm an ex-cop? Do you know that? And he was like, oh, that's good to know. And I said to him, just know that, because you talking about random stuff, I don't know what you're talking about. But now, after all these things that's going on with Paul and all the others, I'm realizing they're targeting people, because I'm very vocal on Facebook about these people, because I think they've gone in St Vincent over a precipice, right? And that's my point of view on this guy and this racism that he's trying to bring into our country in St Vincent and the Grenadines. That's the way I view this guy.
So, I mean, I think you pretty much sums it up. What you just said sums it up. But why do you think? So you think the real reason that he put this bill in effect, or not in effect, but in Parliament, that it is to silence his critics?
Of course. Because some of the clauses, which Brian can explain to you, even me, I was trying to peruse it a little earlier. Even me, first of all, the punishment is so punitive. Who personally sentenced has $250,000 to pay any court.
Well, I've heard people say things like he's getting desperate to finish the airport, which has not been able to materialize in terms of being functional, and he's trying to raise money. So he's desperate. That's one thing that's been put out there. But even if you're trying to finish the airport, I can't imagine that you would do that to people, because first of all, right now, a lot of people, even ULB people, do not want to go to St. Vincent. If you are going to go there and have to deal with harassment, I know for me, let me say this, I will never, and I say this, never allow anyone to make me, Latricia Charles, not be able to step foot on Vincentian soil. I haven't killed anyone. I haven't committed a crime. I will have spoken out about many issues. I will continue to speak out, no matter who is in office. And no one is going to silence me. And no one is going to tell me I can't go there. But back to me. Let me get out my tirade. Back to you. So, but he has hurt this country financially, people are saying, because they're saying a lot of people don't want to go there, what they're saying there. So now, like my mom just got here, and I don't know that I want her to go back to a place where this kind of thing is going on. And my mom loves St. Vincent. She has her own home, her own independence. She doesn't want to be here and not have that freedom to go home to her own house, because she's still mobile. So she wants to be able to go home and get fresh fish and cook and walk down the street and buy her vegetables. She doesn't want to be housed up in New York. We try to always kind of pressure her a little bit to stay. But right now, I don't want my mother to be there. If I was there, that's different. But I don't want my mother to be by herself in a country that is operating in this type of way. Before we went to the break, we were talking about the Cybercrime Bill in St. Vincent. And I want to start off with this question in this segment is, should we in the diaspora, as well as people at home, be worried about this bill? Should we be worried?
I'm not worried about that bill for 1 second. That bill has no effect on me. The people home have to worry about that, because living here, I am filled with freedom of speech. I am not derogatory. I'm not threatening nobody. So who want to bring this cyber bill? It's up to them. The people in St. Vincent, me personally, not worried about no cyber bill. I'm worried about the people back home.
Yes.
Who it's designed to silence. And he's trying to scare tactics to scare us, but we know that he can't scare us. He can't go to the State Department and say, I want Eric Charles extradited because he said I'm evil. They will look at him like if this one is the madman or he's just crazy or it's just an ideology have him spinning around like a whirlwind or something like that. So I'm not worried about the cyber bill. I'm worried about my people back home.
Yeah.
He can't speak. He's trying to make us not speak, which I think he have a next thing coming. Because these bloods are in my vein, which says child not scared of nobody.
So you're more worried about, and I think for me too, that's it. Like I said, I haven't committed a crime. I have never threatened anyone. I don't believe in violence. I don't believe that there's ever excuse for violence. But I will forever speak on this issue. And many people feel that the cyber bill is aimed at silencing his critics in the diaspora, because some of his most vehement critics are in the diaspora. But as you were saying earlier, we're not criminals. We live in a country that where freedom of speech is just it's expected. So no one is gonna prosecute or send somebody back to St. Vincent, so some guy who's operating like a dictator can can take away their documents, keep them there like they're doing. Now, I started to say earlier that Josette Biddy was stopped as she was coming out, and that she was arrested some months ago in front of her class because she insinuated a curse word, and she was stopped coming out. So, are we to see this as a threat? If you don't keep quiet, or if you say something I don't like, we're going to do this to you, or you should be in fear of this being done to you when you come to the St. Vincent? I mean, is that pretty much what you're seeing happening there?
Yes, I think that's what it's all about. But, in a real world, Miss Josette Biddy will be a multi-millionaire because she would sue them for false imprisonment the first time around. The second time amounts to harassment. So they're just pushing their luck because the court is on their side and they have a legal minister of legal affairs who says everything got to come back to him. So he's pushing it up with the people's rights, because that the woman, in my opinion, did nothing wrong, and then leaving your country to leave, and you're harassing her. I worry about what they will do when she return. I truly worry about that.
Yes.
Harass her the same way, and that's big. But something, Trisha, if the people were to sit down and really look circumspectly, and we all know who bullies are, they are the real bullies. Only bullies act like that. They are the real cyber bullies, not the people. When you have a minister of government saying people in the diaspora only talk when they get home, they don't say nothing. To me, that amounts to threat. That you come home, you want to do something for us, and we can't speak, we can only speak here. But they won't look at it that way. So, to me, those people are the bullies, and the people in St. Vincent must rise up and stand up against that.
All right, we're going to take it over to these two gentlemen and kind of get you guys, just stand by it for me, Eric. We're going to get you guys in on this. How much of this you guys think is distraction? Because there's the court case that was it thrown out? And now we've heard them talking about the Caribbean courts. So how much of what's going on there now do we think is a distraction thing, a distraction method to kind of keep everybody talking about these atrocious cyber crime bill that nobody's talking about the court case?
Personally, I don't think any of it is a distraction, because everything coincides one way or the other. Everything has to do with the rights of Vincentians to freely speak, to vote who they wish. It also has to do with the right to protest. All these coincide. So it's not, some people would say it's a distraction, but everything has to do with our constitutional rights as human beings, as Vincentians, to, have that level of freedom to speak, to criticize as we feel. Why are we going to put a bill that is in place to, do more damage to the local people than it is going to help? It's not going to stop people from criticizing. Are the government really going to go and charge the average Vincentian make what? About $2,000 a month?
If that much.
If that much. I know people who work for $400-500 a month. And that's Eastern Caribbean dollars. How are they going to afford? What are you going to do? So
I guess they'll be in jail if they can't afford it.
We don't have a cyber crime unit to speak, to do all this monitoring. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of people using the internet on an hourly basis. You think 3 guys in a room is going to sit down and monitor this?
Well, let me give you this, gentlemen. My sister called me, I think she might have Facebooked me, regarding the fact that there were people from different countries trying to befriend her. I get this all the time. People posing as my friends, and they're trying to befriend me on Facebook. So, how, unless you're standing in a room where I am typing something on the internet, how do you know what I am typing? Is that not a difficult, if not impossible thing to prove?
There's so many hacking and all different kinds of stuff right now. It's virtually impossible. We know St. Vincent do not have the manpower to police the internet. They do not have the right equipment to do it. And first of all, let's think about this. Do you really think that it is legal for the government of St. Vincent to hack into somebody's computer, whether because they get a court order from St. Vincent, to actually go into somebody's internet service in America and monitor it?
Right.
It is not legal.
Right.
It could never be legal. And first of all, you can't go, as Eric said, you cannot go to the State Department and say, can we get a court order to monitor this guy's internet or, confiscate his electronic equipment because they said something bad about the government.
Like Eric said, they'll probably laugh at him if he comes to them with that nonsense.
It's a joke.
So, Brian, is that even legal? Let's go to the legalities of this. That you can, we all know about the freedom of speech issue, but that you can prove something. How provable is it that you can, prove that somebody sat there and typed something? So do they have any kind of a case, any chance of having a case?
Well, I'm not a Vincentian trained lawyer, so I won't go into it, but I don't see how, as a practical matter, they'll be able to prove their case. And if the law applies as it should, I think this case is more about inconveniencing him, punishing him.
Hoping he loses his job.
And hoping for him to lose his job and provide a false pretext to make it seem as if there are actually, that there are reasons for the cyber bill. I think they're trying to use him as a guinea pig to scare people and to make it seem like this is one of the reasons why we need the cyber bill.
I want to try to get everybody's take on this. Do you think that country is unraveling? Let's go over to Eric. You've been there recently. Eric, do you think SVG, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, do you think that country is unraveling?
Big time. That country, you're saying unraveling. I'm thinking it has unraveled because the social economics of being back home 2 weeks ago I saw is sad. Sad. You look at the physical infrastructure of those roads and of everything physical. I mean, you look at the central police station that I worked many years ago. It used to be monumental and conspicuous. It's no more. You go over to Little Tokyo. It's terrible. The economic situation, you can't be, I don't even want to say it, right? But people beg. It's sad for me to say that. I come from a very humble beginning. I'm still humble, but it's very sad the way people look forward to your help. The things they would want to do or ask for, the simple things they ask you for help for, tells me that it's unraveling. You have the crime situation. You understand? It's you look at the young people, they will do anything for a dollar. You understand? You have a prime minister don't have a clue of how to govern 4 years of negative growth, VAT on everything.
So he's raising the raised taxes, and this is an interesting thing. You just mentioned raising putting VAT, value added tax on items. He recently put VAT or value added taxes on basic food items, including salt, to the point where he was nicknamed. Now, one of the things that I'm trying to grapple with is he made a comment that he was doing this basically to feed the poor. Okay? It was the tax that he would get from this would be to feed the poor. How do you tax a people so you could feed them?
Like it's poor economics. Somebody don't have a clue about how to build an economy. You can't tax people to feed them with the things that you tax them for. Which economists in the world would you can explain that to? So it's just utter nonsense that this guy is doing. And always, if you notice, he always uses the poor when he wants to justify his way of governance. His what they call it. He have all kind of names, genteel, poor, and all kind of things. He refers to the less fortunate and finds a way to get more money, to do something not justifiable for the upliftment of the poor, and refers to it as something for the poor. That's the way I look at this guy.
You know, I every year for the last 5 years have had a cultural retrieval, a Garifuna cultural retrieval program in St Vincent. And for those who are wondering what that is, the Garifuna people are indigenous to St Vincent and the Grenadines. They're a mixture of African, Carib, and Arawak. But they very much look like any one of us at this table. The majority of us would have a Garifuna roots, and especially with the last name Charles. So, you know, I would have this program for the children, and I would feed the children, I would get costumes for them, and I would teach them the Garifuna language. Well, not me personally, but I bring people with me from Central America, who are originally from Central America, to teach them the different foods that we no longer cook in St. Vincent, to teach them the dance, the drumming, the singing, and the language. And this year, because I had a fire at my house, it took me about a year and a half to get back into the house, and after that I had quite a problem trying to get stuff passed through the town that I live in, because things have to be up to code before they could officially let you move back into the house. And so I did not have the time to raise the funds to take the program back home. It broke my heart, because I know some of these children would have loved, because when I go, sometimes it was supposed to be just lunch, but the children would come and they would ask for breakfast. And the cook, I remember one of the cooks said to one of the children, "Mistress didn't tell me to give anybody breakfast. She told me to just give them lunch." And I said, "You never, ever not give a child food. If a child asks you for food, you feed that child." So I started taking breakfast stuff, and I would just feed them. Once they came and they needed breakfast, they got breakfast. And they got a snack, and they got lunch. It broke my heart, because this year I was not able to do that to them. But when I was there in 2000, I think it was in 2014, or it was 2014, I had a problem, or it might have been early 2015. I was in St. Vincent before my program, and went to get the building, which I've been using for the last 3 years prior to that, to have the camp. And I felt like I was being harassed by the Ministry of Education, that they were trying to get me to go to, you're just giving me the runaround. And I basically have to tell them, I came here to do something for these children. If you don't want me to use your building, I won't use it. I will simply go to the media and I'll just let them know why I'm not able to bring the program. But I'm not going to kiss your behind to use this building. But you feel like everything there is based on politics. You know, everything there is based on politics. So I'm going to put it to the other side of the table, and you could chime in, Eric, a little bit later on. Why haven't Amnesty International, Human Rights Commission, places like that get involved? I mean, you have people being arrested for basic human rights, for exercising their freedom of speech. You have people detained. You have people who were brutalized. I remember seeing there was a big demonstration and the police was brutalizing these people. One guy got a broken rib. Remember this senior lady who's an activist, Lizette King. She was dragged by police officers young enough to be her son, exposing all of her clothing, her underwear, with no respect for just peacefully demonstrating. And the Prime Minister sat quietly and did not say anything. What's your take on that?
Well, part of it is the people who have stayed silent for too long. It's time for Vincent to speak out. If word is not out, people will know. I mean, fortunately, the international world has started paying attention to what's going on in St Vincent, and hopefully there'll be more of that. We have seen Report Without Borders and all these different agencies condemning the bill. I don't understand why anyone would want to invest in St Vincent with a bill like this. But to get back to the point as to why they have not been involved, I think more people need to speak out and let it be known that there are problems. There are a lot of people who are not aware of this and understand that we're dealing with a guy who is very savvy. He's not, when he appears to the international world, gonna come at you as if he's a dictator of sort. He's gonna come at you from the point of view that he's all right, he's an okay guy. And that's what people have to be able to see, between those things, between the line, and see him for what he is. But more people need to speak out and understand why there are fears, genuine fears in St Vincent about this guy, given his record and given his administration's record. But more people need to get out. I remember someone saying to me some time ago, on their trip up, they met someone from Barbados and they were talking to them about what's going on in St. Vincent. And the lady, someone influential, said, well, the world needs to know more of this. We don't know that in Barbados. And I think that says a lot as to what needs to be done, and we need to talk out more.
And you think the people are not speaking out more because they're fearful?
Many of that has to do with because they're fearful. Much of that, I would say, has to do with the fact that they're fearful. And even a lot of these things are related. The arrest of Paul Scrub, the arrest of Desert Bibi, the intimidation, the lawful protest. Here's a guy who wants to rule by fear and intimidation. And in a country where a prime minister is so powerful, way more so than a president, he has almost unfettered.
How is he more powerful than the president?
Well,
Explain that system.
Well, in a way, the president in the United States, in my opinion, has, aside from having control over the military and the armed forces, on a lot of domestic matters, he has to get 2/3 of the Senate to approve it. And for the House of Representatives.
He has checks and balances.
Yeah, checks and balance. In theory, there should be some similar separation of powers in St. Vincent, but we all know when you're Prime Minister in the Caribbean, in St. Vincent in particular, you have a control over the legal, national security, just about everything, and everybody knows that. You could hide behind.
So him being minister of all these areas that he's in charge of, that's not anything unusual.
There's nothing unusual about it, but we know, for instance, that you're not supposed to have any politician controlling the judiciary or the legal system. Now, is there anyone who really believes that those politicians don't have something to do with the judiciary?
So, would you say, because there are many people who are saying that St. Vincent is not becoming communist, it is a communist state. What are your feelings on that, Benny?
I think we're pretty close if we haven't got there already, because of the fact that, you know, people are generally living in fear. I remember when I was home in 2013 at a popular bar in St Vincent, talking with about 3, 4, you know, big businessmen, very successful businessmen, got involved in talking about politics, and all of a sudden the door opens and the whole room went silent.
Wow.
And one of the guys whispered to me, "That is Ralph's boy."
So there's like Big Brother's watching.
Oh yeah. And right there, the whole conversation ended.
Ended.
People start walking out, dispersed.
I've had similar experience, not to interject, but I've had
You
similar
know,
experience.
and that shows. It's a lot of people are afraid, especially people who have any kind of businesses, because they're afraid that they're going to be the next person targeted.
That's another issue, and I'm going to take it back to you, Eric, again, because you just came from there. There have been many people there who it has been reported that they have been put out of business. You know, the Bigger Bigs issue, and you know, that's one of the more prominent ones. I think we lost him, but with Bigger Bigs, we remember the whole saga regarding him. And there are other people, that he's not the only one, but he was one of the more prominent ones that come to mind. He was a businessman, you know, investing millions of dollars in equipment, and hiring, I think, like 60 workers in a small country. That's a big workforce, you know. That's a good workforce. And he was basically put out of business, from what we're saying, what we're hearing. So, and many felt that it had to do with political victimization.
I just want to interject quickly regarding that the amnesty stuff. I don't know who vibrantly the whole is. I think they're trying, but I think that I don't know how they are affiliated Amnesty International. But I think the president or whoever is taking over since Nicole Hathaway passed should find a way to get in contact with them and get stories to them if they have to write it or televise it or document it. They need to get it to them so that they know the seriousness of the situation. That's the only way I know it can be reached. You know, and they get it to the UN or whatever. But that's how I think we can try to get the message out there that this guy is running a repressive government.
You know, you're coming from down there, and what does it look like in terms of the economy? I mean, are people shopping? What is the employment? I'm hearing that, you know, people are in dire straits when it comes to employment, that they're not getting jobs unless they have supported that regime. And even in some cases, when they've gotten jobs, it was so that they can vote during the election, and then they will let go after. Or, you know, I hear these reports. I have no way of substantiating them, but you just came from there. What is your take in terms of what is going on there economically? We spoke before regarding how people in such dire straits. But what about the young people who are coming out of school? Are there jobs for them? I mean, we as Vincentians, we always, you know, children, we always had where children, you know, the parents maybe, they're not formally educated, but they try to make sure that they make their children live a better life than they did. You know, so you put your children to school, they come out, they're a nurse or a teacher or a doctor or a police officer. And now we're seeing where some individuals are coming out of school and 5, 6, 7 years later have no idea what it means to be in the workforce. I don't recall a time when I saw that in any other administration, where you have just scores and scores of people. I was sitting on my mother's front porch when I was there about 2 years ago, and there was a young man on a garbage truck. And there's nothing wrong with being a sanitation worker, but we know in St. Vincent, there's a certain way that people would look at that. And someone was sitting there with me, and they said, you know, this young man did so well in school, and he can't find a job, so he has to take what he can take. So I don't know, you know, what we should be doing as Vincentians to kind of move this along to get the right attention on it, whether it's amnesty, human rights, what we need to do, but somebody needs to be watching because we're looking at Venezuela and the dire straits they're in. Are we going to wait until St. Vincent get to this stage before we intervene? Everything there says that one man is in control. You know, we have this court system, we have the police, but you saw the chief of police wearing the party uniform, essentially, of the current government. I don't think I've heard that before, where a commissioner of police, the top cop, is actually out there in campaign gear, putting on red uniform and a red shirt, which is their color, to kind of show support. He could vote for who he wants to vote for, but wasn't that a bit troubling that he would do that?
Very troubling. Shows that he's biased, and that's the only in St. Vincent I would say. Regarding the economic situation with the people, but the only people who are, like you alluded to, are the people who work in the civil service. Nothing else is going on. There's nothing manufacturing, there's nothing to create employment, businesses are closing. You walk through Middle Street, people just standing there by the stand. Nobody's buying nothing. You go across, people just sitting there. Young people, you can see it in their face. But from drinking so much, they just sit there and drink beer, drink strong rum. I see that first and foremost.
Despair. Yeah, hopelessness. Yeah, hopelessness. All right, so the next thing is the legal system, and perhaps I'm going to you two take a crack at this. So, is it safe to say that in St. Vincent, it's hard to call the system in place, the legal system, a genuine legal system? If you have police top cop who is spouting his party gear, police officers clearly with someone higher up approval to abuse people who are simply protesting peacefully, and the fact that they have not been disciplined or fired. I remember, for instance, there was a young lady who had spoken at something having to do with some sort of women's rights, and I think people have long forgotten about her. But I think it's sad because she was not a politician, she was not spouting one party over the other, and because she had spoke at an event, I think that might have either been sponsored by or supported by the other party, her personal business was put on radio by a gentleman who works at the Prime Minister's office. And nothing to my knowledge, this woman was victimized, humiliated, and basically pushed into hiding. You don't even hear her name. Her name was Kate. I don't know her last name, but her name was Kate. They humiliated her that she was deported from Canada, what flight she came in on, because she was speaking out against the victimization against women and children, because St. Vincent, from what we have been hearing, have a very high incident of child and women abuse. And so she spoke out at some event, and for that she was state enemy, and she was victimized in this way, very much humiliated, very much made to feel embarrassed. And so this is a country where you have to ask the question, is there a genuine legal system there? Is there anything called a true legal system? Let me get your take, Benny.
Personally, I don't think our system works right now. I think our system is a political system. It does not, the law is not for everybody. It's for, whoever the politicians want it to be. Now, for instance, look at all the crimes and other cases we had. We had the secretary of the registry, for the money she embezzled, or whatever you want to call it, steal. She got to pay back $10,000 out of all those hundreds of thousands of dollars that end up, in
and she's
question.
not in jail.
She never went to jail, and she was allowed to leave the country right after that.
Well, what about Ames, the man who had the big hotel, or the country millions of dollars? And
got
was
it.
it was allowed. His travel documents didn't seem to have been seized because the Prime Minister said he left legally.
And it's funny, I was reading on the internet today, it said that he cannot return for his case because he's too sick.
So you have
Only in St. Vincent.
So you have one person who is held because there's supposed to be some threat that he made against the Prime Minister after being there for 5 weeks, and as he's leaving, he's arrested. But you have somebody who's reported to have stolen
Millions.
the first person,
Hundreds of
thousands of dollars, and was just made to pay back a tiny little portion and no prosecution. You have another person who had a business there. People, I heard many times, could not get paid. He owed taxes in the millions to this country and was allowed to legally leave the country. Okay? So many are saying, this is just more example of the victimization that people are going through there in St. Vincent. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss that issue, and also we're going to discuss, who's really running St. Vincent and Grenadines at this stage. Who's really running St. Vincent and Grenadines?